Let's look at some careers in CJ. We've talked about law enforcement, but I'd like to shift the focus onto some other things too. Because I don't want you going away thinking that, well, with a CJ degree, all you can do is be a cop. No, not even close. There's tons and tons of stuff you can do. We're just going to scratch the surface here a little bit. You could go into private security. So this is a new growth occupation. I'm not just talking about Joe or Jane, the security guard in the, in the little shack that lets people through the gate. I'm talking about really decent paying careers in mid and upper level security. We've seen a decline in revenues for police. So filling that gap, we're seeing security companies developing and coming in and stepping in. Private security really doesn't have very many constitutional limitations. Fourth Amendment? Huh, what's that? I mean, really, they don't. Which gives them better control of specific problems, such as specific security tasks, employee theft, drug use, stuff like that. So when I was a college student, I worked for Sears Security at Frandor Mall in East Lansing, or I guess it was in Lansing. And at the end of the day, we would close up all of the exits except for one, and all the employees that were still there had to leave through that one exit, and we had to search their stuff. We went through their purses, their lunch boxes, whatever packages they had, and we could do that without any kind of a warrant because we were private security. And they were on company property, and it was a subject, or it was a condition of their employment. So if they didn't like it, they could find another job. And so our job was to look for stolen merchandise that people were trying to smuggle out. Dow Chemical, Dow Corning, their security. Same thing. They can say, okay, well, we think we have got some drug problem here, so parking lot B is going to get searched today. So everybody show up, open up your cars because we're going through all the cars in parking lot B. And there's not a dang thing you can do about it because you're on that private property and they don't need a warrant. Delta College has a security degree. You can get an associate in arts in security. Or you can get a certificate, which I believe is an 18-credit certificate. So here's kind of the neat thing. It dovetails very nicely into the Ferris 3+1 program because Ferris requires that you take 21 elective credits. 18 of those can get you the certificate. Or you can get your associate degree, and it dovetails right into the Ferris 3+1 program, and you walk out of here with 2 degrees, an associate's in security and a general criminal justice degree. Who would want to hire you, right? So something to look into. Oops, I was supposed to animate that. All right, cyber careers. This is new. We've got a new program here. We're looking at careers like computer forensics analyst, like cybersecurity, like digital forensics. Everything's about computers nowadays, isn't it? I mean, computers make the world go round. I remember one time I pulled in to pump some gas at a gas station. They told me, oh, well, our pumps are down because the computer's down. We can't operate them without the computer. And it's kind of the way of the world. This is a huge, huge growth occupation, and it's expected to continue to grow. So if you like computers at all, this is something that you can look into. They expect 3.5 million positions by 2021. A bachelor's degree level job is going to land you in the vicinity of about $95,000 a year. And there's a huge demand. If you want to be a police officer and you have a cybersecurity degree, can you imagine how fast an agency is going to snap you up with that kind of training? Delta has programs in cybersecurity and digital forensics. Look under CSI in your class search. It's not under criminal justice, it's under CSI, which is not for crime scene investigation. No, it's for cybersecurity. 911 emergency dispatching. Right? The people behind the scenes that make the world go round. So they essentially receive calls, they dispatch assistance, and they maintain communication. They provide the info to police, to fire, to EMS. All 3 counties are almost always hiring continuously, because the training period is kind of long, because there's so much to learn. But it requires, obviously, that you're calm and cool, and that you've got a modicum of common sense, and that you can multitask, so that rules me out completely. But if you can multitask, I mean, these are good careers. These aren't just jobs. These aren't stepping stones. These are careers, and they pay well. So if that's something that you're interested in, I would encourage you to look into it. Saginaw, Bay County, Midland County, they're all always taking applications. Animal care officers. So animal care officers investigate animal mistreatment or attack. And this happened just a few years ago over in Bay County. A small black male cat with severe facial injuries was found outside a home in Bangor Township. His eyes were so badly damaged that they had to be removed. The veterinarian determined that the cat's injuries were intentionally inflicted. So somebody intentionally blinded that poor cat. Now this is a public safety issue, because anybody that's going to treat an animal that way, they escalate to people if they're not already there. Every single serial killer known to man started with animals. So this is pretty serious stuff here. They relocate mistreated, lost, or homeless animals to shelters. In this picture, this is the same kitty. He's had his surgery, and you can see his eyes have been removed. And he was in the animal shelter for a while until he healed up, and then finally a family stepped up and said that they would like to adopt him. And I guess even though he's blind, he gets around just fine. Yeah, a lot of sad stories come out of this. One of my former students is an animal care officer over in Bay County, and I've stayed in touch with him, and he's got some heartbreaking stories. But you know, I mean, if you're the kind of person that can do that,
Go for it.
go for it, really, because we really need good people in that field. They also care for animals in custody, because once we bring them into animal shelters, we have to care for them. And they enforce local ownership laws. Perhaps you recall my story of my criminal cat. And when the nice animal control officer showed up, he asked me if my animals were licensed, and of course they weren't, and I told the truth because they weren't. So yeah, he made me go get a license for him, and the nice man did not write me a ticket. Conservation officers. DNR, yep. Conservation officers enforce fish and game regulations. They protect natural resources and the environment. And, many people are surprised by this, they have full law enforcement authority anywhere in the state of Michigan.
Don't they train through the state police?
No, not.
No?
They're trained down in Lansing, but it's a whole different academy.
Now, conservation officers have their own academy, and it's actually tougher than the state police, if you can imagine that. State police on steroids.
You're screwed.
Oh.
They have a Facebook webpage or a Facebook page you can go to, and quite often they'll put up pictures of their training academies. That's how I know that it's harder than the state police, because I'm like, ooh. Plus I know a few former students are conservation officers. But a lot of people think, well, you know, they just have subject matter jurisdiction. They only have enforce fish and game laws. That's not true. They can write you a traffic ticket.
Chances.
And they enforce fish and game laws, which the state police can't do. So they actually have more power than any other law enforcement agency in the state.
Passed an officer on the way to the class today when he was going down 20.
Well, we were in the UP coming back one time, and you know, the traffic's all jammed up coming down this road. And I noticed up ahead there was a conservation officer car, you know, I mean, the green car, the blue bubble. And I noticed that. I noticed in the rear view there are a couple of young college-age girls that were in a real big hurry. And they go,
Oh.
and jack around us real fast, you know, and jump in. And I elbowed my husband. I says, watch this. I bet they don't know. I bet they're going to pass that conservation officer. And sure as God made little green apple. They went right around the conservation officer. And I'm like, how many seconds is it going to take? About 5. Yeah. The lights come on. Pull them over. They didn't know. You know, I'm guessing they probably got an education that day.
More than an education.
Corrections. Another area that there's a lot of hiring going on in, so you can be a corrections officer. You can work in a county jail as a corrections officer. You'd be deputized by the sheriff. Or you could work in a state or federal prison. And Delta College also has a corrections associate degree program or a certificate. You can do either way, and both of them dovetail very nicely into the Ferris 3+1. So you can get your bachelor's degree in criminal justice and an associate degree or a certificate in corrections. And walk out of here basically with 2 pieces of paper, 2 certifications. And why wouldn't you, right? Because it costs the same amount of money. Plus, corrections is hiring like crazy right now because of all the retirements. So Michigan Department of Corrections, we'll talk about them a little bit more later on when we talk about the corrections unit. But they're hiring right now, and starting pay for Michigan Department of Corrections right now is $17.67 with full benefits. And it just goes up from there. And there are lots and lots of jobs, there are lots of opportunities for advancement. So if you haven't thought about it before, it might be something you want to look into. If you're not sure, and you'd like to learn a little bit more about corrections and the corrections environment, I would encourage you to take either one of those 2 classes or both. So you can take the CJ 135, it's called Correctional Institutions and Facilities, and you will go on 3 prison tours. And at the end of that class, you will know for sure whether you want to work at a prison or not. So I've had students take that class, and they go, well, I wasn't decided before, but after going into the prisons, oh, hell yeah, I want to do this. This is awesome. And then I've had other people do the exact opposite. Well, I wasn't sure, and after I went to the prisons, oh, hell no. But you'll know, I promise you, you'll know after you take one of those classes. You can take the jail class, CJ 237, Jails and Detention Facilities, and they do 3 jail tours. Or you can take them both and have a lot of tours. Yeah. But I promise you, if you're on the fence about corrections, take one of those classes and your mind will be made up at the end of the class. You can work in probation, parole, or community-based corrections. Now, community-based corrections is essentially any kind of corrections that occurs in the community rather than behind bars. Most of those jobs require a 4-year degree in some sort of human service. So corrections, criminal justice, psychology, sociology, social work, something like that. Youth care. You could work with troubled youths. So we have a youth services program. It's not actually in the criminal justice program. It's actually over in social work. There are a few criminal justice classes you take, and then you seg over into the social work program. And then if you desire to continue, Saginaw Valley's got a really excellent 2+2 with us. So you make the jump over to Saginaw Valley into social work, you focus on youth services, and you're going to come out with a bachelor's degree with a focus on dealing with young people. So I'm not trying to run you out of corrections or criminal justice, but there are a lot of opportunities here too. And if you change your mind, guess what? You can do everything in corrections and criminal justice with a social work degree that you can with a criminal justice degree. Finally, we have the courts. Now, I don't even know all the jobs that you could have in the courts, so I just put a few of them up here, but there's a lot of jobs over in the court system. You can work courthouse security. You've all met the courthouse security deputy now. You could be a bailiff. You could work inside the courtroom. Now, that was a lot of fun. I did both. I really liked being a bailiff. I really hated working the courthouse security checkpoint. It was really awful. I lasted a week, and I had to request a reassignment because I was going to be homicidal.
Yeah.
Really, you don't realize how thick people are until you work a position like that. Yeah. All right, sir, empty your pockets out into the bowl here. Put all your belongings on the metal detector conveyor and walk through the metal detector, right? Sir, do you have everything out of your pockets? Well, I have these keys. Yes, sir. Keys are made of metal. It's a metal detector. Please put the keys in the bowl and walk back through. Sir, do you have everything out of your pockets? Well, I have this change. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That's made of metal. It's a metal detector. Would you please put everything in your pockets in the dish? Sir, what do you have in your pocket now? Well, I have this lighter. Now, imagine that, times 50, 100 every day.
Okay, baby.
I couldn't do it. I don't have the disposition for it. The people that can work that position, I give them my props. I couldn't do it. But being a bailiff, that was a great experience. You know, bringing the bad guys from the jail and into the courtroom, and then you get to stay in the courtroom and watch all the goings on and doings and everything. It's pretty cool.
Do you ever question people's stupidity?
Every day,
Okay.
always. You will, you will. The question was, do you ever question people's stupidity? And when you go into our field, you will every day. It doesn't matter what position you work in. You could be an attorney.
That's a lot of schoolwork.
That's a lot of schooling. So it's a 4-year degree, and then you go to law school, which is 3 more years.
Probably would take a hard rate pass.
But, you know, I mean, if you become the right kind of attorney, I guess you can make a lot of money if that's your thing. Or you can bring a lot of justice to the world if you want to be a prosecutor. You could be a law clerk. Now, again, that's a misleading title. Law clerk, you know, summons images of somebody that doesn't do anything very important, just pushes paper around, and that's not true. A law clerk is a certified attorney. They've passed the bar, but rather than practicing law in the courtroom, they practice law behind the scenes and they do legal research, usually for judges. You could be a victim's rights advocate. So these are people that every single court system has 1 or 2 of them, sometimes more, and they work with the victims, helping them navigate the court system, understanding what's going to happen next and what they need to do and what might be expected of them, and kind of giving them a heads up along the way. So they have a really, really important job. Why you could even be a judge. And to be a judge, you first have to be an attorney, you have to have a law degree, and then you have to run for the office and be elected. And you could do that. And as I say, there's probably a gajillion more positions. Is that a real word, gajillion?
Maybe.
There's probably a gajillion more that I don't even know about. I went to the courthouse to deal with a situation that I was having to deal with. Somebody stole a bunch of money from me. And I ran into one of my former students, and she had some obscure little position in the courthouse, and she was making good money, and she was very happy. And I'm like, wow, cool. I didn't even know that position existed. So, you know, there you go. She knew somebody, and she applied for a job, and there you have it.